Okay, so the Second Amendment. This is much more fun when we're in class. And again, hopefully we'll do a discussion on this soon. But the Second Amendment's kind of an interesting case because many people today, and the majority of people out there, just feel like, oh, the Second Amendment's so clear. It's obvious. You have the right to bear arms. But when you read it, in a close reading of it, you say, okay, here it is. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So to many that is very clear, and the Supreme Court in recent years has said it's clear that they can't take away, no one can take away your right to bear arms. Sort of an interesting note, though, is that throughout American history, really up until 2008, from the beginning of American history till 2008, this was not considered an individual right to bear arms. This was considered to be the right to bear arms in coordination and connection to the need for a militia. And so throughout the 1800s, 1900s, cities, towns, states, wherever, they could limit your right to bear arms. They could ban handguns or have other long waiting periods. They could restrict it to maybe just gun clubs. There's just different things that places were doing. And then in 2008, the Supreme Court, in a conservative decision, said this: the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess. So it changed for always before 2008. They had allowed limitations on the right to bear arms in the sense of cities and towns, states, wherever, limiting your right. In 2008, they said, no, you have an individual right to bear arms, and it really has nothing to do with the need for a militia to protect a town, like maybe in the old days. And so throughout American history, that well-regulated militia had been connected to the right to bear arms. And in 2008, they said no. They said it is an individual person's right to bear arms. So 2 years later, in 2010, they went further, the Supreme Court, and they incorporated the Second Amendment, which before 2010, cities and towns could take away your right to bear arms. And after the 2010 decision in McDonald v. Chicago, then they said, no, you can't. It's not only an individual right, but it's a right that has to be protected from any kind of local government incursion onto your rights of some sort. And so the whole sort of the way the Second Amendment is viewed now has been much more, I say gun friendly, but much more on the side of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has been a really difficult topic for politicians because you would expect liberal politicians, Democrats, would be, more likely to have gun control. I mean, want gun control, and Republicans more likely to support guns. When Democratic candidates run for the nomination for the Democratic Party now, they'll tend to be more left on this, where they'll tend to say, yes, we want restrictions, we want this, we want that in terms of guns. But then when they're trying to win the presidential election against a Republican, then they tend to go a little bit more towards center, because America is such a gun, I say friendly place, but in terms of number of guns and all that, I'll show you the maps here. We are supportive of the Second Amendment, I guess, to say the least. And so in order to win the presidency, you more likely are going to have to be at least center on the gun issue. If you're someone who comes out and says, I want to ban all guns or take away all handguns or something, you are probably not going to be able to win an election. And so Democrats have a sort of a game they have to play of trying to win the nomination, but then win the presidency. And obviously, with all the issue of school shootings and other things that have been in the news a lot in the last 10 years or so, this is a very sensitive topic. In terms of the number of guns, is one of the more recent ones I found. Guns per 100 residents, and you see United States has 120 per 100 residents, and so we actually average more than one gun per person. Whereas in Yemen, which would be, they've had a civil war recently, Yemen has one gun per every two people, and that's the second highest. And you look at other places, Montenegro, broke away from Yugoslavia in the last 20 years or so. Serbia is old Yugoslavia, and it's been in a civil war for years. And then you have Canada, which is, right next to the United States. So and you could look at other reasons why some of these other countries may or may not have high gun ownership. But the United States is far and away more than double the next country in terms of how many guns per person. When you look at states in the United States, North Carolina is sitting at about 28.7% own guns. You can see the darker colored are where there's a higher percentage. And the darker colored states tend to be Republican. Almost all of them. Wisconsin will, sometimes go Democratic. Minnesota will go Democratic. Maybe Iowa. But most of these tend to be Republican states. And so it's sort of interesting at the rate here in Alaska. And the highest here is Alaska, and Alaska is always a Republican state. So kind of interesting when you look at the map that way. And so with the most important thing then for us for the AP test is this case, McDonald v. Chicago, is one of the cases that's required in here. And Justice Thomas actually went in a concurring opinion. He actually said we should change that decision that was made in the slaughterhouse cases that basically made the Privileged Immunities Clause obsolete. Don't really worry about that, but he wanted to totally finish incorporating the Bill of Rights. Like, for instance, there's very few parts. The one that comes to mind is the right of grand jury has not been incorporated, so states do not have to necessarily give anybody a grand jury hearing. California has another process called discovery, which is really the same thing, and the courts have said that's fine. But almost the entire Bill of Rights, after this decision, has been incorporated, so the states have to follow the Bill of Rights. And so the Second Amendment, a very controversial issue, obviously, and you all can read that and make up your own minds as to what you think that means. Does that mean that everybody has the right to bear arms and there's no limitations at all? Or does that mean you have the right to bear arms if it's needed for you to be part of a militia to protect a town? And there's a lot of other sort of middle grounds to that too. So anyway, I just want to touch on the Second Amendment today, and I will stop there. Thank you very much.